Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of Progress MS-22 launching from the Baikanour Cosmodrom in Kazakstan. If it's your first time here, welcome here at the launch pad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together. And if you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. We are counting down 45 minutes, 30 seconds and counting until liftoff of a Soyuz 2.1A rocket from the Baikanour Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Russia is just getting their live feed underway here, and we'll be patching them in and out throughout tonight's live broadcast as we continue towards countdown now 45 minutes, 10 seconds and counting away from liftoff. You're looking at a live view of the pad there of the Baikanour Cosmodrome where the Soyuz 2.1A rocket is being prepared for liftoff here tonight. As always, if you have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those over the course of tonight's live stream. We're going to do our best to keep the rocket on the screen throughout tonight's countdown as we continue towards that, but it looks like they are having a little bit of fun with their live feeds here this evening, so we'll be bouncing in between those. NASA will be going live with commentated coverage as well in about half an hour, so once they do so, we will patch them in as well to hear an update from mission control at the NASA Houston Mission Control Room as the International Space Station prepares for the Progress craft to arrive up at the International Space Station. We saw a Progress craft undock from the ISS just yesterday, making room for today's Progress MS-22 spacecraft. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. Here at the Launchpad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you joining us here this evening. If you have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we'll work on answering those throughout tonight's stream. Here at the Launchpad, we bring you full live launch coverage, space briefings, space news updates, and exclusive one-on-one interviews, and we're glad to have you joining us here tonight. It's a little bit of a chilly day out at the Baikanour Cosmodrome. It is winter, of course. Current weather looking minus 14 Celsius, minus 21 degrees Celsius there. Sunrise was at 7:58 a.m. this morning as teams were preparing for today's launch, now just over 43 minutes away. Do have a little bit of wind to the north and a very high humidity. That's why you can see some of that fog kind of lingering around the pad, but everything proceeding well until today's liftoff. We're going to be popping on and off with commentary throughout today's countdown, so stay with us right here on the launch pad. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at a live view of launch pad 31/6 at the Baikanour Cosmodrome, where Roscosmos is preparing to launch a Soyuz 2.1A rocket with the Progress spacecraft up to the International Space Station for a cargo resupply mission. We are now at 35 minutes, 13 seconds, and counting until liftoff, and you can see the large claw structure around the spacecraft, rocket and spacecraft is now beginning to retract away. This is one of the last major visual milestones that we will see until actual liftoff just under 35 minutes from now. If it's your first time here, though, welcome here at the launch pad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you joining us with us here tonight. We got people all over the world tuning in. We got LR from North Carolina, David's in DC, we got John in Washington, we got Billy in Sarasota, Williams in Tulsa. Great to have you joining us all here this evening. Thomas is in the UK. We got Anthony in the UK as well. Great to have you all here with us tonight as we count down towards the first Roscosmos launch of 2023, the first launch to the International Space Station of 2023, kicking off an incredibly busy year. This is not the rescue mission that many of us have been waiting for heading up to the International Space Station. That is still a couple of weeks away, but we will, of course, bring you full live launch coverage of that. Right now, they're targeting February 19th for the launch of that Soyuz MS-22 spacecraft, and just a couple of days later, on February 26th, Crew 6 is expected to head up to the International Space Station. So a very, very busy month up at the ISS. We're glad to have you with us here for the first launch of 2023 from Roscosmos. As I said, you're looking at a live view of launch pad 31/6, where the Soyuz 2.1A rocket was rolled out just a couple of days ago ahead of today's launch. They're beginning to clear the pad ahead of tonight's launch, or this morning's launch, depending where you are in the world. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by taking us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those to the best of our ability. In the next about 20 minutes or so, NASA will begin their live coverage because it is an ISS mission, and we'll patch them in to have the translated commentary of the Russian mission control as we go towards liftoff here now, just 33 minutes and counting. You can see it's a snowy day there in Kazakstan. Taking a current look at the weather at the Baikanour Cosmodrome, 14 degrees Celsius, feels like negative 21 degrees Celsius. You got a bit of a wind coming from the north at 29 kilometers an hour with 87% humidity, but nothing that they cannot launch a Soyuz spacecraft in. We've seen them launch these in basically every weather condition. Soyuz is an incredibly capable vehicle. A little bit of the rocket's facts for you there about the Soyuz 2.1A rocket, its engines and its fuel. You can check that out on your screen as we continue through tonight's count. A couple people asking, is this the one with the Soyuz capsule? No, this has a Progress spacecraft on board for a cargo resupply. The Soyuz capsule for the crew will launch in a couple of weeks, but we're glad to have you here for tonight. It's going to be a busy time for Roscosmos launches and the United States, as we'll also have the return of Crew 5 just a short time after Crew 6 launches up. Busy start to the year. Of course, we're all also counting down to that historic 33 engine static fire test scheduled for tomorrow at Starbase, so keep an eye on that. We may or may not be live for that. We're working on a couple options, so we hope you'll follow along with us, at least on Discord and Twitter, and possibly via a live stream as well. If you haven't yet, though, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream. It really does help us out. Hearing some of the ground comms there as they continue to prepare for liftoff. 31 minutes, 10 seconds, and counting. See a great question coming in from Cruiser Chris. What happened with the engine testing at the Standish today? There was the RS-25E engine that was tested at Stennis earlier this afternoon in the United States. That was the first hot fire test, a full duration 8.5 minutes, 500-second test of the RS-25E engine, which is the next generation engine that will be used starting with Artemis 4 and beyond. Artemis 1 through 3 will use leftover engines from the shuttle, unfortunately. Uh, Very sad to see those end in the ocean, but starting with Artemis 4 and on, they will have a new generation of RS-25, and that's what we saw tested today. It looked like a really great test, but we're still waiting for updates from NASA on how that test went. If you're just joining us, though, welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at a live view of the Baikanour Cosmodrom in Kazakstan, where Roscosmos is preparing to lift off a Soyuz 2.18 rocket up to the International Space Station. We're now under 30 minutes and counting away from liftoff. And it looks like the Roscosmos feed dropped out there. We'll work on getting that back here. So we patched over to their live commentary feed, where you can still see a few of the live views of the pad as we continue towards liftoff here in just a short amount of time. 27 minutes, 16 seconds, and counting on the clock. Things continuing well towards an on-time liftoff from the Baikanour Cosmodrome. It seems Roscosmos is having some fun with their feeds this evening. So we might just wait until NASA gets their live feed up here in the next couple of minutes. But as we wait for that to come online, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those over the next little bit of time that we have here as we continue towards liftoff now, just under 26 minutes from now. Great question coming in the chat from Cruiser Chris. How long will it take the spacecraft to get to the International Space Station? I believe I heard it was 36 hours. It is going to be very early on Saturday morning. We're going to bring you full coverage of that. I believe docking was expected at 3:29 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday morning. So we will be counting down towards that. Of course, they'll adjust that once they're in orbit, but we'll bring you that full live coverage of docking as well. Skylar, thank you so much for that super chat. Appreciate it. Why are they doing a supply run when the SpaceX crew is returning to Earth soon? Why not do it at the same time of the SpaceX crew switch? Because they need a lot more cargo than they can send on a Crew Dragon. So they have to send up these cargo resupplies. There's generally 6 to 8 of them a year, on top of the cargo that are already coming on board the Soyuz and the Crew Dragon crafts. But when you have 7 to 11 people on board, you need a lot more cargo than just a couple suitcases to last them a year. So that's why we see these resupply missions occur. But they do always send up new cargo, last minute requests, or things that are needed to maintain the space station on those other missions as well. But on board this one, they'll have fresh clothes, there'll be research and science materials, there'll also be like water and fuel and different things that they need that they'll launch through these Progress spacecrafts a few times a year. A great question. Thanks for sending that in. And it looks like we've got that live view back.
It's because we're doing great things out there.
Here.
We're not going to go anywhere without our partner.
As they continue through their countdown, they're having some fun today on their live feeds, moving things around, but we'll do our best to keep those straight and clear so we can get you the best view of today's Progress launch. I see a couple people asking, why are we covering a Russia launch? We haven't been doing that as much as lately. Any launches that impact the operations of the International Space Station, we will always cover because that impacts not only Russian cosmonauts crews, which have not been part of the situation in the Ukraine, but also it impacts the American crew, the Canadian crews, Japanese crews, and all the other partner nations. So we will always cover any launches that impact the International Space Station. Now just 22 minutes, 20 seconds and counting until liftoff from launch pad 31/6 at the Baikanour Cosmodrom in Kazakhstan. You can see the pad starting to clear out, only last minute personnel out at the pad. Those claws around the pad have fully retracted away in preparation. It's one of the last major milestones we will see until the actual launch sequence in the last 20 seconds. Great view there just a moment ago, seeing kind of the big valley that they launched these in, a natural flame diverter that they use in Kazakhstan at the Baikanour Cosmodrom.
Доклад 5-го принял. Эвакуированы восстановленные места. Прошу разрешения учиться связи, 80-й. Доклад 80-го принял, первый. Разрешаю уйти со связи. Готовность к пуску 15 минут, первый. Готовность к пуску 15 минут, принял, 20-й. Готовность к пуску 15 минут, принял, 30-й. Готовность к пуску 15 минут, принял, 50-й. Готовность к пуску 15 минут, принял, 60-й. Готовность к пуску 15 минут, принял, 70-й. Доклады руководителя работ принял, первый. Первый, расчет заправочного оборудования, эвакуирован восстановленные места, 20-й. Доклад 20-го принял, первый. Первый, система измерения ракет-носителя включена на излучение, 70-й. Доклад 70-го принял, первый. Первый, расчет системы управления эвакуирован восстановленные места, 30-й. Доклад 30-го принял, первый. Первый, расчет эвакуирован в безопасную зону, 60-й. Доклад 60-го принял, первый.
You're looking live at Launchpad 6, Site 31 at the Baikanour Cosmodrom in Kazakstan, where Soyuz 2.1A booster rocket stands ready to launch an unpiloted Russian resupply cargo spacecraft carrying almost 3 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the multinational Expedition 68 crew aboard the International Space Station. Good morning from Mission Control Houston. In the International Space Station Flight Control Room, bringing you live coverage this morning of the launch of the Russian Progress 83 cargo spacecraft set to lift off at 12:15 and 36 seconds a.m. Central Time, 11:15 and 36 seconds a.m. Baikanour Time. Progress, once launched, is set for a 2-day 34-orbit journey to the International Space Station, where it will automatically dock to the Svesta service module on the aft or the back end of the station's Russian segment Saturday, February 11th at 2:49 a.m. Central Time, 3:49 a.m. Eastern Time. The Progress 83 cargo spacecraft, again, is filled with about 3 tons of cargo. The breakdown on that cargo is 3,501 pounds of propellant, 88 pounds of nitrogen, 926 pounds of water, and about 1,200 pounds of dry cargo, which includes spare parts and other supplies. A total of 5,715 pounds, or 2.8 tons of cargo, being carried to the International Space Station. Earlier this week, the Progress spacecraft was transported to the launch pad from its processing hangar. The railroad car hauled the Progress vehicle about a quarter of a mile away to launch site 31, where it was hydraulically lifted to its vertical position, where technicians began the process of hooking up fuel lines and power lines for the final stages of the processing that will lead to this morning's launch. Now just 13 minutes until liftoff. The flight, as it is always for a Russian Progress or Soyuz vehicle, will be controlled once it reaches its preliminary orbit by flight controllers in the Russian Mission Control Center, pictured on your screen, in the town of Koryov on the outskirts of Moscow. The flight control team has been on console throughout the day, monitoring all the preparations at the launch site in the Central Asian desert. Here in Mission Control Houston, in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, the team of flight controllers have been on console this evening, working in tandem with the Russian flight control teams. And currently, we have about 7 crew members. We have 7 crew members aboard the International Space Station. From left are NASA astronauts Frank Rubio, Roscosmos cosmonaut Dmitry Petelin, Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Koichi Wakata, NASA astronauts Josh Cassada and Nicole Mann, and Roscosmos cosmonauts Sergei Prokopyev and Anna Kikina. Back in Baikanour, the temperature is 3 degrees Fahrenheit with sunny skies. The 2.1A booster was fully fueled several hours ago. All of the propellants are being replenished now as we are in the final minutes of the countdown that will lead to a launch at 12:15 a.m. Central Time, 1:15 a.m. Eastern Time, which will be 11:15 a.m. at the launch site in Baikanour. Now about 11 minutes and 30 seconds away from launch, and all the preparations are still running smoothly for an on-time launch. Again, that's 12:15 a.m. Central Time. And looking at the orbital mechanics for today, the launch time for any vehicle to reach the International Space Station is selected at the moment that the Earth's rotation carries the launch site into the plane or corridor of the orbit of the International Space Station, which is inclined at 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator. That's the way the phase angle and the launch time is calculated to bring the Progress to its 2-day 34-orbit rendezvous, which it will enter to deliver again about 3 tons of cargo to the International Space Station. Now about 10 minutes away from launch, and flight controllers are still reporting everything is running smoothly for an on-time launch today. Again, that is launch time of 12:15 a.m. Central Time, 11:15 a.m. Baikanour time. The Progress is launching atop a Soyuz 2.1A booster, which is a three-stage rocket. The first stage will, with its liquid fuel engines and strap-on boosters, will burn for about a minute and 57 seconds before the strap-on boosters are jettisoned and the first stage separates. That'll be followed by a minute later by the jettisoning of the launch shroud. The second stage engine will burn for about 2.5 minutes to continue propelling the Progress towards its preliminary orbit. The second stage separation will occur at the 4-minute and 48-second mark, followed by the third stage, which will burn for a little over 4 minutes until it shuts down 8 minutes and 45 seconds after launch, followed just seconds later by the Progress's separation from the third stage and the initiation of the solar arrays and the navigational antennas to deploy. After third stage separation, Progress 83 will be put into its preliminary orbit to begin its 2-day 34-orbit journey, arriving to the International Space Station on Saturday, where it will automatically dock to the Svesta module on the aft or back end of the station's Russian segment at 2:49 a.m. Central Time, 3:49 a.m. Eastern Time. The Svesta docking port was vacated on Monday, February 6th, when the uncrewed Russian Progress 81 spacecraft undocked from the International Space Station, freeing the port for Progress 83 to dock. At the time of launch this morning, the International Space Station will be flying 260 statute miles over Libya, North Africa. The 7 crew members aboard the station just awoke from their sleep period, but we will be wide awake on Saturday for docking. Prokopiev and Patelin of Roscosmos will be inside the Svesta service module at a control panel called the Toru system, the tele-robotically operated rendezvous system, and would be prepared to operate a joystick in the unlikely event that a problem would occur with the automated rendezvous system. The countdown will soon move into its automated phase. That will include the purging of nitrogen from the first stage engines, the propellant drain back to make sure that the first stage of the Soyuz booster has the correct amount of propellant for its first 2 minutes of flight. Booster propellant tank pressurization will follow, and the ground propellant feed will be terminated. Now, just about 7 minutes away from launch, and flight controllers are still reporting everything is running smoothly for an on-time launch today. Again, Progress will begin its 2-day 34-orbit journey to the station today, arriving to the station Saturday, where it will automatically dock to the Svesta module on the aft or back end of the station's Russian segment. Again, that docking time is 2:49 a.m. Central Time, 3:49 a.m. Eastern Time. Once Progress arrives to its preliminary orbit, there will be a series of critical burns of its engines. Those are known as DV burns or delta velocity burns, basically a change in velocity burn. It's the first automated maneuvers that will raise the Progress to match that of the International Space Station. And now, just about 6 minutes until launch, the countdown proceeding on track. Once Progress arrives in the vicinity of the station early Saturday morning, Sergei Prokopiev and Dmitry Patelin will be inside the Svesta service module at a control panel, ready to operate a joystick in the unlikely event that a problem would occur with the automated rendezvous system. 5 minutes until launch. The countdown still proceeding on track. Again, we're looking for a launch time of 12:15 a.m. Central Time. Now only 4 minutes away from launch. We should be hearing controllers of the blockhouse in Baikanour reporting a purge of nitrogen for that first stage. The fuel lines and other elements of the rocket engines are purged with nitrogen to proof them by removing vapors or fuel and oxidizers. The first stage will be pressurized at about the 2-minute 45-second mark before launch. The pressurization of the first stage fuel tanks will optimize the pressure of the fuel, helping the structural support of the rocket as it sits on top the launch pad. Again, you're getting a live look now from launch site 31 at the Baikanour Cosmodrom in Kazakstan. The Progress running through final procedures, ready to begin its 2-day 34-orbit journey to deliver about 3 tons of cargo to the International Space Station.
If you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at a live view of launch pad 31/6 at the Baikanour Cosmodrom in Kazakhstan, where Roscosmos and the Russian Space Agency are preparing to launch a Progress spacecraft on a cargo resupply mission up to the International Space Station. We're now 2 minutes, 30 seconds and counting away from launch. And as always, we do a go, no go in the chat, so you can send us in there. We're going to listen in to the NASA translation of today's launch through a number of different views for the launch, so there may be a second or two delay in that audio. But if you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, and subscribe so you never miss another live launch coverage, space briefing, space news update, or exclusive one-on-one interview. T-minus 2 minutes and counting.
Again, we have 1 minute and 32 seconds until launch. Now 1 minute and 30 seconds from launch. At this point, ground propellant feed has now been terminated. Now coming up on the 1 minute mark. Now 1 minute from launch, the Soyuz rocket is now on internal power. T-minus 45 seconds to liftoff. Vehicle switching to internal power. T-minus 27 seconds, and the first umbilical tower has separated from the booster. T-minus 20 seconds and counting. The auto sequence has been initiated. Launch command has been issued. Second umbilical tower separated. And we have liftoff. Liftoff of Progress 83, the next vehicle in the supply chain to the International Space Station. Good roll, pitch, and yaw. Program reported from Baikanour. First stage performance reported to be nominal. Good vehicle stabilization reported. Good chamber pressure reported on the first stage. First stage performance reported to be nominal. One minute and 22 seconds into the flight, the Soyuz booster is passing through maximum dynamic pressure. Flight is reported to be going good, going by the book. Good structural parameters reported from the launch engineers in Baikanour. 1 minute and 45 seconds into the flight, everything reported to be going well. Standing by now for first stage separation. Good pitch, row, and rotation nominal being reported from Baikanour. First stage separation confirmed. The 4 strap-on boosters have completed their job and dropped away at 29 miles in altitude. Second stage engine is up and burning. This will be about 2 minutes and 39 seconds of second stage performance. Flight controllers reporting everything operating nominally. The Soyuz booster traveling almost 5,000 miles per hour. Again, the second stage will last until about the 4 minute and 48 second mark into flight. All parameters reported to be nominal from the blockhouse in Baikanour as we approach the 3 minute mark into flight. Confirmation of launch shroud jettison. The rocket's altitude now about 49 miles high, traveling at a speed of 5,203 miles per hour. Second stage engines reported to be operating nominally. Getting a view now from the Soyuz booster. Again, all the vehicle parameters reported to be nominal. Again, second stage engines are reported to be operating nominally. Coming up on the 4.5 minute mark into the flight, standing by now for second stage shutdown and second stage separation. Again, you're looking live now from a camera on the Soyuz booster. And we have second stage shutdown and separation. Second stage. Third stage engine is up and running, everything looking good. Now traveling just over 9,500 miles per hour and 100 miles in altitude at the 5-minute mark into the flight. Now being propelled by the single engine of the Soyuz third stage, the engine will thrust and burn for about 4 minutes. All structure parameters still reported to be nominal. Good third stage engine performance reported. Coming up on the 6-minute mark into flight. Third stage performance continues to be solid, propelling the Progress 83 cargo craft into its preliminary orbit. Again, you're getting a view from Progress with the solar rays there at the bottom of your screen. Six minutes and 30 seconds into flight. Third stage engine still burning nominally as the Progress heads towards its preliminary orbit on its journey to the International Space Station, delivering about 3 tons of cargo. About 2 minutes of powered flight remaining. Again, you're seeing a view from the Progress. Third stage performance still reported to be going well. 7.5 minutes into flight, the Progress and the Soyuz now traveling 14,000 miles per hour, 124 miles in altitude. The trajectory flattening out, about 1 minute of powered flight remaining. Now at the 8-minute mark into flight, since the Progress lifted off, Progress now traveling almost 15,000 miles per hour and 125 miles in altitude. All structure parameters still reported to be nominal. Again, all structure parameters still being reported to be nominal, and we will stand by for third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation. Third stage shutdown confirmed, and the spacecraft separation confirmed. Next step will be the deployment of the solar arrays and navigational antennas on Progress 83. And we just got a view of the arrays deploying. And again, getting reports now from the Mission Control Center in Koryov that the solar arrays and the antennas have deployed. The Progress 83 resupply spacecraft now officially in its preliminary orbit, which begins its 2-day journey to the International Space Station to deliver about 3 tons of cargo. We are now.
And with that, Progress is on its way to the International Space Station. We hope you'll join us bright and early Saturday morning around 2 a.m. Eastern Time for our live docking coverage of the Progress spacecraft at the International Space Station. If it was your first time here, though, welcome here at the launch pad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow. So we believe that space is better together, and this concludes our live launch coverage of the first Soyuz launch of 2023 and the first launch of a cargo resupply mission to the International Space Station of 2023. But that's going to do it for us here tonight. This is Zach from TLP HQ signing off. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.